TribeHouse Art Leaks.
Was I wanted to like barrel through this season when my kids were small and they were at home, and I wanted to just be able to say that like, and I, you know, had the success story, and I learned how to be creative through all of this, you know, and I didn't. I totally sucked, and I totally failed, and that's okay. And so now I feel like I can speak with some authority on the creative process in that as well. So I like to talk to myself when no one's around. So I was walking downtown. Where are we here? Yeah, downtown, just by where all the boats are parked. And there was no one around because it was the middle of winter. It was cold, and so I was just talking, and I was just kind of, you know, like asking for help and clarity, and just kind of processing out loud to myself, like, what's going on here? Why do I feel so confused? Why do I feel so disoriented? Why do I feel like there's something in myself that I want to bring forth, and yet I'm not bringing it forth, you know? And as I was talking to myself, out of the corner of my eye, I saw this man in a boat looking at me out of his window, and I stopped talking to myself, and I was just like, and I just kept walking. And then, kind of after a few seconds, I was like, why is that guy in this boat looking out his window? And I turned to look, and it was a cardboard statue. And it was, I don't know why it was in the boat, maybe scared, I don't know, people away because they wanted to break in or whatever, but for whatever reason, there was this cardboard statues in the window. And it was a mixture of my having been processing this problem with age and just that cardboard statue, that something just clicked inside me. And I realized that that fear that I had of, for whatever reason, that I couldn't be myself in this world was as valid and as real as that cardboard statue, and I had been silencing myself for something that was as real as cardboard. And so I want you to think about that. Think about the things that maybe stop you and silence you, that are, you know, maybe just fake, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? That are just fake, and they're scaring you away, but they're not even real. When we are afraid to be creative, it's because we feel overwhelmed by the possibility or all of these ideas. And so often breaking it down into just really small, manageable goals really helps. And sometimes even just like saying you're going to write from 2 to 3 is like way too much. Sometimes you need to actually just be like, I'm just going to write about my childhood for 15 minutes. Or I'm just going to, like, Maya Angelou, she's written so many, she's written gazillions of books, amazing books. And she said that sometimes she will sit down for weeks and just write "The cat sat on a hat," and that was that. And she just writes silly little rhymes and gibberish because she says that if she sits there long enough, she knows that eventually the muse is going to be like, okay, Maya, I'm here. You know, you're listening, you're ready, here I am. And that, I mean, that's really, really painful to sit there and write crap for that long. The best advice I ever heard about creativity was from Jan Arden in an article that she was being asked about songwriting. And I will never forget this because, I mean, what she said was, you know, she's written so many hit songs, so many amazing songs. Even, I don't really personally connect with her style, but you have to admit she's been a very successful singer-songwriter. And I heard her say in an interview once that she writes a lot, and 85% of her songs are total crap. And then she just keeps the 15% good ones, and that's how she's made her career. And I remember reading that and being like, oh my gosh. So she actually has to give herself that much permission to sit down and write 85% crap. You know, like that's a total different story than just being like, okay, well I had like a great idea for a poem today, and then just feeling like, you know, really bad when it doesn't come off the way you want it to. So for me, that changed my creative life. Just giving myself permission to write crap most of the time. And then, okay, so I have these sheets for you. So, which means that our creative path is basically like trucking through on our way to good work, on my way to a good song or a good poem or a good essay or, you know, a good whatever. I actually have to make 85% jump. And so I wrote you guys these little maps. So they're called the Creative Path Maps. And I've used my new fabulous skills in Adobe Illustrator that I learned in school to make these charts. And it's just a reminder that that's the path. So it's like maybe there's a good song and there's a good poem and there's a good whatever you make, but there's also like terrible, mediocre, total failure, couldn't finish it. This concept of walking through crappy work to get to the good work. As I've walked through the crappy work to get to the good work, what I've noticed is that I never needed to be afraid of the crappy work, because all our crappy work and our unfinished work is like a compost pile. And to make really good, nourishing soil, you have to throw in all the rotten vegetables and the rotten fruit and like the cow poop. Apparently, I don't know why, it makes really good compost. So all of that has nourished the soil for my future creativity. It doesn't help to judge your work. Just sit down and get it done. And if it sucks, it'll feed your future work. And if it's good, then great. You have a new song, you have a new poem, you have a new photo, you have a new dance, whatever. But it all just kind of feeds into each other. So that helps me get over my perfectionism. And keeping it really small. I always remind myself, I don't even know if I made it up or if I read it somewhere, but I call it the 15-minute rule. It's like, it doesn't matter how stuck or discouraged or low you feel, you can always put the timer on for 15 minutes and do something. And you know the expression like where your attention is, then that is what grows. I've learned that if I can put my attention on something creative for just 15 minutes, the timer goes off and I'm like, yeah, whatever, and I just keep working, time grows. And even if you don't have time, if you get that 15 minutes done, and that's it, you have to like run off and pick your kids up from school or whatever, there's some energy that you can do 15 minutes again the next day, and then 15 minutes again the next day, and then somehow miraculously you're like, oh, I can actually find 20 minutes to do it today, because it just grows. There's this book called Simplify Your Life, and it's just all these concepts of how to live more simply. And she said an amazing thing about creativity that I won't ever forget. She said, creativity is like a train. It takes a lot to get started, but once it's going, it takes a lot to slow down. And I love that, because that's what happens if you can find just 15 minutes for something creative. It was the winter, we were all a little sad. The fighter fish was a gift from my mother, because in the house we were renting, we were not allowed to get a cat. Like I need one more thing to take care of, I complained the day my mother arrived, unannounced, with the fish in a clear plastic bag. My youngest shrugged her shoulders as if to say, this is nothing remotely like a cat. But we grew to love the fish mostly, called it Sarah, admired its iridescent purple scales which faded to blue twilight around the edges, spent long, slow minutes watching her black ribbed tail lift like a flame at the sides of the bowl. After a few incidents of being knocked over, water and fish crashing against the wood floor, we decided Sarah was invincible. So when my daughters asked if they could bring her into the bath that evening, I said I thought it would be all right so long as they kept the water cool. This is how taking a bath with the fish eventually became their evening ritual. Laughter pouring out into the hall as Sarah swam between their slippery limbs, gulped at the air before finding refuge under the washcloth. One evening we remembered the fish, but ran the bathwater too warm, and Sarah never came up for air. We watched her spin anchorless through the water like a leaf blowing in the wind. Oh well, came the reply from my eldest. I never really liked her that much anyway. We took her in a cup out to the backyard, the girls in their terry cloth bathrobes from Christmas, held the small service while we shivered in the January cold. It was the least we could do. Then I scraped at the frozen ground to make a small hole between where the poppies and the daisies would eventually